Plato. You hear the name and you think, okay, I know this guy. One of the most influential philosophers ever. So when he starts talking about God, we think we know what he means. But what if his God wasn't a person at all? What if it was more like a perfect, unchanging blueprint for reality itself? Today, we're going to dig in and figure out what Plato is really getting at.
So let's just get right to it. Did Plato believe in God? The short answer is yes, absolutely. But, and this is a really big but, it's almost certainly not the God you're picturing. This isn't about religion the way we think of it today. For Plato, this was all about the ultimate nature of reality.
So, to crack this philosophical code, here's our game plan. We'll start with what Plato's God is not, then we'll dive into his wild concept of reality, we'll meet the ultimate principle of his universe, and then see how it all clicks together.
Okay, first things first. We have to take one of the most common ideas about a divine being and just set it aside. See, Plato's God isn't a creator, not in the way we usually mean it.
You know, most of us think of creation as something from nothing, ex nihilo. A divine power just poof, creates the universe. But Plato's vision, totally different. He imagined that the raw material of the universe, this chaotic, formless kind of primal glop, was already there. The divine's job wasn't to invent it, but to step into this chaos and bring order, reason, and beauty to it. So think less of a magician pulling a universe out of a hat, and more of a master sculptor looking at a raw block of marble and seeing what it could become.
So, if Plato's God isn't a creator, then what is it? Well, to find the answer, we have to understand the world it works in. And for Plato, our world, it isn't the only one. And honestly, it's not even the most real one.
The absolute foundation of Plato's whole philosophy is his theory of forms. He argued that for every single thing we see in our physical world, a tree, a chair, an act of justice, there's a perfect, eternal, and unchanging blueprint of it that exists in a higher, purely intellectual realm. That perfect blueprint, that's the form of that thing.
And this is where he splits reality in two. On one hand, you've got our world, which he called the realm of becoming. It's messy, it's always changing, things are born, they decay, they die, we experience it all with our senses. But then there's the realm of being. That's the world of the forms, and that is true reality. It's perfect, it's timeless, and you can't see it or touch it. You can only grasp it with your mind.
Okay, so you've got a perfect form for trees, and one for justice, and another one for, dogs. You can imagine this realm of being is starting to get pretty crowded, right? So Plato wondered, what holds all of this together? What's the organizing principle for all these different forms?
He reasoned there had to be a single ultimate form, like a form of all the forms that gives reality and truth to everything else.
And he called this ultimate principle the form of the good. Now, this is crucial. It's not just a good thing. It's the very essence of goodness itself. It's the source code for reality. This is the absolute peak of his entire philosophical system.
Now, this is a pretty abstract idea. So to explain it, Plato came up with this brilliant analogy. Think about the sun in our physical world. The sun gives us light, which makes it possible for us to see things, right? But it does more than that. Its energy is also what allows things to grow and even exist.
The form of the good, Plato argued, is exactly like the sun, but for the intellectual world. It illuminates all the other forms, making it possible for our minds to understand them, to grasp truth. It's the ultimate source of both reality itself and our ability to actually know that reality.
And then Plato takes it a step further, and this is where it gets really wild. He says the good is actually beyond being. It's not just another thing that exists, it is the source of existence for everything else. This right here, this is about as close as Plato ever gets to defining a supreme, ultimate God.
Okay, so we've got the ultimate blueprint, the form of the good, and this whole library of other perfect forms. But a blueprint is just an idea, right? How do these perfect concepts get stamped onto that messy, chaotic matter we talked about earlier? Who's the builder?
Well, in one of his later works, the Timaeus, Plato introduces this amazing figure called the demiurge. The word basically means craftsman or artisan. This demiurge is a cosmic architect, and because it's inherently good, it looks up to the perfect realm of forms and has this desire to make our physical world reflect that perfection as much as it possibly can.
But the demiurge is the head architect, not the guy on the construction site. It comes up with the master plan. To actually put that plan into action, it creates something called a world soul. You can think of the world soul as the engine of the cosmos. It's this active, rational force that runs through everything, constantly working to impose that perfect, rational order onto all the physical stuff.
Now, this all sounds pretty optimistic, but it immediately throws up a huge glaring question, doesn't it? If a good, rational architect is shaping the universe to be as good as it can be, why is there so much suffering, chaos, decay, and evil?
Plato's first answer comes down to a concept he calls necessity, or enenki. The idea here is that the raw material of the physical world is just, well, it's stubborn. It's inherently chaotic and unruly. It actually resists being shaped into a perfect order. So even if the architect's blueprint is perfect, the material itself is flawed from the get-go, and that means the final product can never, ever be flawless. And in another dialogue, he paints this even more incredible picture. He describes the history of the universe as a great cycle. First, a divine pilot is steering everything, and the universe becomes more orderly and good. But then, the pilot lets go of the wheel. The universe starts to unwind, just running on its own momentum. And slowly but surely, its original chaotic nature starts to take over again. Then, right before total collapse, the divine pilot grabs the helm once more and restores order. It's this constant cosmic tug-of-war between order and chaos.
So here's the absolute bottom line on this. For Plato, evil isn't a sin. It's not a moral mistake that God made. It's a fundamental, unavoidable feature of the physical world itself. The realm of being is perfect, but our realm of becoming, by its very nature, is unstable and in flux. And that instability is the source of all evil.
All right, so let's pull all these different threads together. The forms, the good, the demiurge, the problem of evil. What does the complete picture of Plato's God actually look like?
So at the end of the day, Plato's God isn't a single person that you would pray to. It's really a combination of ideas. It's the form of the good, that ultimate impersonal principle of all reality. It's the demiurge, that rational architectural force pushing for order. And maybe most importantly, it's the perfect model. For Plato, the whole point of living a philosophical life is to try to become as much like this divine rational order as a human possibly can. And that leaves us with this really profound idea to chew on. If the divine isn't a person, but a perfect, rational, and impersonal principle, what does that mean for how we should live our lives? It suggests that being a good person isn't about obeying a list of commands. It's about shaping our own souls to reflect the perfect, harmonious order of the cosmos itself.